to what you saw in high school, what would be like if you said college usage of your arm was 100%, how could you relate that to a high school athlete right now? Meaning like, man, I probably threw 50% less in high school than I did in college or whatever your ratio would be.
Um, so my situation is a little different because so my freshman year, it was basically me, like we had two pitchers. It was me and then an older girl who's a senior who was going to University of Minnesota. So she was pitching pretty much every single game. I only pitched like maybe 50 innings that year,
Is this
maybe
your
less.
first year in high school or in college?
This is my freshman year in high school.
Okay, so we're talking high school here.
Yeah. So this is my first year in high school, and then sophomore year, she's graduated, so now I'm pretty much the only pitcher on my team. There
Hmm.
were a few other girls, but I was pretty much the only competitive pitcher on my team. So I practically pitched every single game. So I don't know what that would add up to, but probably more than I'm pitching in college right now. That I pitched in high school, and then junior year was my COVID. It was COVID, so I didn't have a junior year, and then senior year was the same thing. I pitched pretty much every single game except another freshman came in, and she was a very competitive pitcher as well, so she got to get some innings as well, and then
Hmm.
I think she's going in college as well now. So um,
I can look up Game Changer and find out what your stats were.
Now,
yeah.
when you're talking about like comparable to games, I'm talking about like your overall experience because you have way longer practices in college than you probably did in high school. You are basically a full-time, like that is your job, right? So you have a fall workouts, you got individuals, then you have, and I mean, when I was in season, I felt like my arm was going to fall off some weeks,
Mhm.
not just the underhand pitching because you had to throw your bullpens and you had to throw the series, whatever your rotation was, but just like the overhand throwing, the repetition, the 2.5 hour practices on defense, and then you had to go hit. So, did y'all have like pretty long practices in college compared to high school ball?
Yes. So our high school practices, we kind of just chose what we wanted to do. So my coach would be like, "Oh, do you guys want to get BP like me to throw BP today?" And we're like, "Yeah." And we BP for 30 minutes and then we'd be out of there. So
Yeah.
it's like he was very chill in that sense, but now when we get to college, it's very like 2.5 hours, 2.5 hour, 2.5 hour every single day, especially after an hour of weights in the morning from 7 to 8, and then I have practice from 9 to 12, and then I have class the rest of the day. So that's when we get into 20-hour weeks. Right now, we're going to start going into 8-hour weeks, which are more like individual practices.
Hmm.
Um, and I feel like I pitch a lot more during the individual weeks because that's when we get our one-on-one time with our pitching coach. And
Right.
then when we have our 20-hour weeks, which is the 3-hour practices, then we're doing a lot of teamwork. So now the pitchers are involved in field work and getting the team involved. And now we're doing live scrimmages. So um, I definitely pitch a lot more during bullpens with my one-on-ones with my coach. And then once we get into 20-hour weeks, it's more of teamwork. And then we start pitching live and everything. And yeah, my body is dead in the fall. Once we get to spring ball, when season actually starts, they do let us cool down a little bit since we do have to pitch maybe 2 or 3 games in the series. Especially because in preseason we have double headers like for our tournaments and everything. So they're a lot more chill on that sense. But yeah, there were a few full games that I did pitch these past 3 years that I've played, and my body's a wreck for sure.
Yeah. So maintaining because there's like a difference because when I played, it was a lot of there were like a ton of breaks in high school ball, select ball. We took off like the whole month of August. We took off half of November, December, and you just really don't see that a lot now. You see
Mhm.
basically 12 months, and depending on where you live, of course. But like in Texas, we could literally play 365 days out of the year, and we wouldn't bat an eye. Meaning like we have like fields that are able, weather's fine. But the issue is obviously overuse with arm care. and this is my theory, you only get so many throws no matter how great your arm care is, like you're born with just as much as God gave you, right? And you can diminish that by not taking care of yourself. But do you see a difference in freshmen coming in the 3 years you've been there, like showing them like, hey, look, like this is not a sprint, it's a marathon. So what do you see that kind of like translation between high school ball and college athletes coming in and them not really being in like that throwing shape?
It's hard because what they're transitioning from a summer of like 5 big tournaments. Like they're coming straight from PGF a few weeks
Right.
before that. So they are pretty fresh, I would say. Like those girls are coming out of pitching maybe 2 or 3 games in a day for their team at PGF or during pool play. So I wouldn't say that like it's a very hard transition, but now we're it's definitely harder. Like in the fall, you kind of get a glimpse of it during fall ball, but usually we just play junior colleges and maybe even we've played Stanford and Cal in our fall ball games, so they get a taste of that really quick. And I think that's when it's like the perspective changes. It's not like, okay, these are the type of girls I'm going to be playing throughout my college career. So then you get into season. It's more of a mindset shift instead of a physical shift, I would say,
Mm-hmm.
because of the type of competition that you're playing, say in PGF, or maybe your team went to Alliance and played like pretty competitive there as well. And so I think like my transition from high school to college was more of a mindset because now these girls are 22, 23-year-olds that have been in college for 4 or 5 years. And now I'm a little 18-year-old trying to strike them out. So it's like definitely having to switch your mindset and to be like, okay, we're on the same field, we're playing the same game. Let me just play my game and do
Mm-hmm.
that. Physically, more of the challenges come in when we start doing workouts, like our weights and workouts and stuff, because some girls aren't used to that type of weightlifting and pushing weight that hard. Um,
Right.
so when I came in my freshman year and we were doing workouts in the morning, I had to take an ice bath like 5 times a week because my body was so like drawn out, and it was definitely because of the type of workouts we were doing. But some girls freshman year come in without any weight training experience.
Right.
So that's where I see a lot of the freshmen have troubles, is they're like way too sore or their form isn't correct, so they're getting hurt. So like pitching wise, like as a pitcher, I don't see very many like they don't have much trouble kind of getting into the groove of things, but it's like weight training and like getting into that schedule of a college athlete that I see is like kind of difficult for them.
Yeah. What type of do y'all usually lift in the mornings and then like do y'all switch it up with speed and agility, or how do y'all work your schedule when it comes to like out of the field workouts?
So in the fall, we have Monday, Wednesday, Friday weights from 7 to 8. And then usually we start practice at 9, so that hour break, girls go in to get treatment on whatever they need treated on, and then we go straight into practice. But yeah, our weights have always been in the morning, and then during season they're only Tuesdays and Thursdays, but then they're at the same time in the morning. So
That's not a bad time. Ours were like at
I know.
like early, like 6 a.m. Like
Yeah.
I remember literally getting to the weight room like 6 a.m., or we would start the workout. So you had to be there at like what, 5:45, right? You're like walking
Mhm.
in the dark. And then we'd work out for an hour and a half. I would get done by about 7:30 and I wouldn't have class till noon. So I would like shower and just go right back to bed. And then I'd like, cause all my classes, or I didn't have practice till noon. All my classes were at night classes, because that's the business school at my college didn't open up till 1. So I couldn't have any morning classes unless it was outside my degree. Right. So that grind started really early and then that was my break. And then I hope to God I had all enough time to get all my other stuff done.
Yeah.
Um, when it comes to like you're saying like lack of form or maybe they're sore or whatever, did you feel like you were prepared to go to college like weight room wise, or did y'all what kind of like stuff did y'all do as like dad and daughter, or Russell, what type of like I guess, programs did you put Lacey in before she went to college?
We had we started out with Susie Parr. Are you talking about pitching specifically?
Weight training, speed and agility, something
Oh, okay.
outside of.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
she was part of the Bat Buster organization. So we paid an X amount of dollars to Bat Busters to go to a facility, and I think Lace is it 2 or 3 days a week you were going down there,
Yeah.
working out, and they would do different, agility movements, weightlifting. She's hanging out with Tiara Jennings, Alyssa Brito. She's hanging out with these girls and working out with these girls on 2 days a week. So that I didn't do anything. I just drove her there, and then drove her back. So, and that was about an hour away. So we do that 2 days a week, and then she would have pitching lessons out there as well.
I also I went with a few of my teammates, especially when I was like maybe a 10U, getting into travel ball. There was a coach that had workouts out of his garage, and so me and a few of my teammates would go to him, and he coaches like D1 football players, D1 baseball players, and it's literally just like a little gym in his garage, and we're just kind of throwing weight around. But he really emphasized form and pushing each other, and like we would compete against each other. So that was like my first real taste of weightlifting, and that's where I kind of got stronger. And then we had to go to STC for workouts as like a requirement for Batbusters.
Mm-hmm. That makes total sense. And that's cool that y'all kind of got to double dip, meaning like they provided like a softball aspect and then they gave you the resources, whether you liked it or not, to go to like the speed and agility. I'll tell you, when I was training, basically the hardest part of my training to get to college was like sophomore junior year. We did speed and agility training, and it does work, but it doesn't happen overnight. And I think that's why a lot of people stop doing it, because they're like, well, we're not paying all this money, like, she's not getting that much faster. But like that compound interest that all that work just accumulates into like a second or a half a step, which is usually the amount of measurement that you're out or safe, right? So do you all have like measurements at your school where they're like, hey, this is where you want you to be? Or is it just like, hey, we want you stronger, faster, better, and it's just like a general consensus of like what the athletes need?
So my first 2 years,
First, state where you go to school. Let's start there. So if people that are online, they're like, I don't even care where this girl goes to school. Obviously, they're gonna care when they hear where you go to school. But
yeah.
state where you go, what year you are, and then my question.
So I'm a senior at San Jose State University in San Jose, up in the Bay Area. And then, so this is my 4th year. I just started my 4th year. And so my first 2 years here, we had testing beginning, like when we got here in August, we had testing. And so that was basically like grip strength, throwing speed, let's see, 5 10 5 shuttle, 20-yard sprint, 50-yard sprint, and we would get timed. So we got tested then, and we got tested at the end of the semester. So right when finals were in December, we'd get tested again to see how much we improved. And then obviously we'd get kind of harped on if they saw like no improvement at all. But these past 2 years, I mean, I think a lot of universities do this, is like a run test. So last year it was kind of a mix of like sprints and like you had to make this time. But now this, as my final year, we're doing the beep test, which is kind of like the pacer test if you ever did that in like middle school or anything. So we have to make it to a certain level, and if you don't, then you fail, and then I think there's consequences if you do. So yeah, that's kind of where like our benchmark is at. Really, anything else like pitching wise, or I know they want like the slappers to have a certain 60 time, like 60 feet under a certain amount of time. But other than that, the running test is basically like our benchmark for like conditioning and stuff.
Mm-hmm. What is like the craziest thing a coach has done for conditioning for you? Like high school, college, whatever, but like what is something you're like, that was wild? Like I can't believe he or she made us do that.
Mm,
7 innings, coach. Lace.
7 innings was pretty bad. That
Tell
was
me
like
what that is.
that was like maybe 10U, 12U. No, it was 10U for sure.
Second
What
year
does
10.
7 innings mean, though?
So basically, we would sprint the equivalent of what 7 innings would feel like. And I,
Define
it
that. Like, how do you quantify that?
honestly, I don't really remember. Like, I just remember like my coach saying like, "All right, get on the line, 7 innings," and I remember my heart just sinking to the bottom of my
You're like,
chest.
I'm already throwing up.
Dad, like, do you remember what it
Yeah,
was?
it was cone work. Like you'd have cones out there, and you'd have to run a certain distance in the first inning, and then the second inning you're going a little bit farther. So it was like
Kind of like horses or like
it was like shuttle runs, but like as the innings gone on, the longer and then he would time them so that like if you didn't make it in time, it was almost like miracle again. If you didn't make it again, so
yeah.
you keep doing it. And so when they would, if they screwed up, right? If he was pretty hardcore in the 10U. Like if you were a bunch of errors, you weren't focusing, he would say, "Okay, 7 innings," and the girls would just drop their heads because it was brutal. And these girls are 10 and 11 years old, by the way.
And
Yeah.
we had a hill in the back of there's like the field, and then in the outfield was huge, but then there was a hill that would go up to the neighborhood, and we called it like the Diamond Hill. And so he would be like, "All right," at the end of practice, he's like, "All right, go to the Diamond," and we're just like on the
Point.
verge of tears.
He would just point.
Yeah, we would sprint up the hill, up and down, up and down, up and down, and we did not know when we were going to stop. He never said any like number of sprints. He's like, "All right, go." And we would not know when it would end, and that was probably the scariest part.
Yeah, definitely. I think we've all been tortured or had some type of trauma when it comes to conditioning. And you have to think now that you're older, like they all mean well, maybe it's like their delivery that could be a little bit better. But
Yeah.
our coach one time, he's military. He took a gigantic foam pole, and I don't know where he found this pole, but he made us all run with the pole for 4 miles. Like we had to carry the pole. So we got smarter where we're like, hey, we don't need everyone on the pole. We just need the like minimum amount. And then when we were like, okay, y'all are tired, like then we'd switch so you could run a little bit without the pole. And we're not talking about like a flat surface here. We're not like running around a track. We're on a trail. Like, and this is at like fall where in Corpus it's literally like 150 like percentage of humidity. And it was brutal. Okay, great. Good. Keep him over there. All right. I'm almost done. Thank you. Maybe in a little bit. Love you. All right. Bye. But yeah, that one was literally, and like one girl, like legit got a heat stroke and had to sit out for 4 days. Again, he meant to like do a team building exercise. Ended up being like half the people are throwing up, one quit, and one's in the trainer for 4 days. So,
Yeah. Insane.
yeah. When like is there anything that y'all say to the incoming freshmen that like would prepare them better for the years to come? Like kind of like, hey, like this isn't high school anymore. Like everyone's just as good as you are. Like what's the narrative now? Because I know when I was like going into school, everyone would try to like kind of like sticker shock you in the sense of like, hey, you're trash. Like we're better than you. We're older. Like we're 22 and you're a little 18-year-old. Like is it still kind of like a scare tactic or is it like, oh, we love you. Come on. Like, please don't get the portal. Like, what is it like?
Yeah, we are not a scare tactic team at all. We One of our main things too that we don't like is like how other universities make the freshmen do like everything. So it's like you get the gear, you clean up after practice, you do all this stuff like that. That didn't really like resonate with our team really because we do it all together. Like every travel trip, everyone is assigned something. So like I could get like the ball bag. I could be assigned the ball bag one weekend while a freshman has the bat bag, and it interchanges between classes. That's one of the things that sticks out to me about my team is that we do everything together. We clean up together. We go to weights together. It's not like the freshmen have to do all the rough stuff and like treat everyone like or like get the seniors Starbucks every I don't know. I've heard some crazy things that the
That would
freshmen
be a
have
good one to implement, though. I don't think that'd be a bad one.
no. I know, but we're definitely a more like welcoming like yeah, this is a great opportunity to get to know one another, all of this stuff. What we don't I last year this was a topic was like the freshmen you could tell that they were going like pretty light in weight like when we're doing weights and everything and kind of being like kind of sluggish at practice and people saw that and so we had like a team meeting and we're like freshmen pick it up because that's not like that's unacceptable and
Right.
like seniors seniors should not be like pushing themselves harder than you freshmen still have to prove yourself because I mean your teammates have never seen you play. Maybe I mean, the coaches have seen you play in another team, but now how are you going to integrate yourself into this new team? And
Right.
you need to push yourself and you need to stand out and you need to be vocal and all this stuff. Like you need to work together as a team. If you're slacking, we can see it. And
Totally.
so that was a whole ordeal last year where at the beginning of the year we're like step it up because we're noticing it.
Yeah. Yeah. And like whatever they put into it is exactly what you're going to get out of them, you know? One
Mhm.
second. I need you to leave me. That's not my problem right now. That's not my problem. Great. I'll change it in a little bit. Love you. Bye. Sorry. I could be ruder. Um, so sorry. My husband's at work. So, um, there was, and I was wondering if this is something that y'all deal with, is when I was a freshman, I had a like, one second. You need to go. You need to go and leave me alone. When I was a freshman, the seniors were like, they met up and they were like, you're not serious enough. Like, you're not doing this. And it was kind of like their last shot. You know what I mean? And I played like a very significant role. I was pitching and I was hitting. Like, I would hit for the other pitcher and then I would pitch. And there was a lot of pressure on my shoulders, but I also was like the first time ever getting out like on my own. I was very like sheltered in high school. I never, got to do whatever I wanted, basically, and then I get this freedom. And let's just say I made the most out of the freedom. But when I became a senior, I realized exactly what they were talking about and like how I did not want to lose one more game because I had already had, my freshman sophomore year, we had a losing season. Like we were under 500. So I was like, we're not doing that again. And I became this like alpha female, like, dude, if you're not here to win, like you needed to go to home. Like I had no grace for any slack. You know what I mean? And I look back and I had messaged one of the seniors and I was like, dude, like, I get it. I'm so sorry. Like, I was a jerk my freshman year. Like, I was immature. Like, I didn't know what y'all were fighting for. Like, I was more selfish than I should have been, and it's all reflection. And you definitely get better as you progress over the years that you are from 18 to like 22. Hopefully, people do. But do you see yourself having like kind of the same conversation with yourself or seeing maybe some of your teammates like, wow, you've matured so much since your freshman year?
It's a tricky question.
You don't have to say names either. Don't call anyone out on here.
Um,
Well, I can speak with some of her frustrations because she came from a very competitive travel ball, right? She played for Mike Stess, she played for Mark Campbell, she played for these high end coaches, and these teams, the expectations on these teams were pretty
High.
high. Would you
Yeah,
agree?
super high. The
Yeah,
highest,
yeah. So
right?
then
Mike Smith is like one of the best out there.
yeah. So she's coming into college, and some of these girls may not have been on these very intense travel ball teams. Maybe it was just more kind of kumbaya type of thing. And so I can tell Lacey, because she's super competitive, kind of sounds like you, Margo, that she was super competitive, that she was like, what is going on here? How come they're not like working their ass off? Like, and so she would work her ass off, but then she would get frustrated because, some of the other girls weren't. Now it's not everybody, but it was just a couple of girls that just were just, and I'm like, you're a Division I softball player. How are you not working your butt off? And so that was some of her frustrations. especially sophomore and junior year for sure.
Yeah. And I think too, like and I've defined this watching like my generation go and then seeing other like, generations coming through is like sometimes girls that are playing high school ball or travel ball, their goal is only to get to a school. And then that's it. Like they've done the work, they checked the box, they said they got, recruited and they got a scholarship. But that's like just the beginning. And then there's some girls that get it that have to put extra work in outside of because everybody's practicing. But there are girls that were just content with just getting on the team.
My thought process in that is because I've known girls that are like that as well, but I mean, I've heard this since I was a girl, and like I bet younger athletes all like have heard it as well. As like if you're not putting in the work, someone else is doing it better than you, or like someone's working harder than you. So like I kind of like, especially in high school, I knew there were other girls out there that were trying to like are in my same position trying to get recruited.
Mm-hmm.
So what was I going to do about it? Like, how would I go about working towards what I want and trying to beat them? Like, I don't know what they're doing. I don't know like how they're training or whatever. I was going to do what I was going to do to work hard to get to where I wanted to be. But I
Mm-hmm.
knew like, especially if I was like, oh, like I don't want to go to practice today, or I don't want to throw a bullpen today. Someone out there is going to throw a bullpen today and get
Totally.
better than me.
Yeah.
And that's the last thing that I want.
It's like a self-induced FOMO, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like Russell, what was like your one-liners to Lacey? Like when she needed a little extra motivation as a dad.
I was just, come on, Lace.
That's it. That's all
That
she
was just,
needed.
come on, Lace. I mean, because we've talked about it on other podcasts where I put a lot of pressure on her, right? And she, came to like our kitchen crying because my personality, and I talk about this often, is I put so much pressure on her because of the organization she was in. And if she did bad, it was a reflection of me as a father. Like, I'm not doing enough. So I would push her. My personality was, if she did bad on bullpens, I would ignore her. I wouldn't talk to her. And she got emotional one time. So I backed off at that point. So if she did walk somebody, I would just say, come on, Lace, real loud. Just come on.
I would say for him, like I don't know when I started doing this, but I would like schedule out my week because he would catch me. So like he would need to know when I wanted to pitch and everything. And so I'd have something come up. I'm like, "Oh, I'm going to do this." He's like, "Oh, I thought you were going to pitch today." And then I was like, "Oh, yeah." And then like it's kind of like a little guilt trip, but like not.
Oh yeah. Be like, I scheduled around you. Like
Yeah.
you're the one
Yeah.
that made the schedule, not me.
Or he's
That's
like,
cool that you had that type of like maturity to make that schedule and have that accountability. And like all he is your accountability partner, right? Like at the end of the day, he's not gonna like tie you up and make you go pitch, right? But you made that, move to make the schedule to commit to it because that's your goal, right? And then he was like, are you sure? And then you knew like to kind of backtrack and see. And that's really cool that y'all had that connection together. A lot of people, one, don't have the maturity, and two, they don't have the dad. Not physically, but like they don't have someone be like that actually will go catch somebody. I think this is like where I hope you know, and you know this, but like a lot of these parents are outsourcing exactly what your dad did for you. And one, a lot of them don't even have the money to outsource it, but they're doing it because they say they want to, right? And two, it's like it doesn't take a rocket science like to know that every time you throw a ball low inside, like your arm's slow. You know what I mean? Like you could be a creature of like evolution and be like, oh wow, I can actually look at this and learn. Like it's not like you're paying just for Lacey to hear the instruction. Like you probably went to every first lesson and was like a sponge, learning. And then, everyone's creatures of habit. So like Lacey probably had the same bad habits every time until you fix them. And then when you were doing good, your dad was like, dang, she's on. Cause he knew you, like he knows you, right? But a lot of people aren't spending that time with their daughters or sons. And then it's always somebody else's fault, right? Like, oh, it's his pitching instructor. Like he's not doing what, he needs to do, or she's going with this guy, but he doesn't know what he's talking about. It's like, well, you don't either. You're not even taking the time to learn. And so Russell, like, that just says like a lot about your personality. One, you're a doer. Two, you created a doer, right? Lacey's a doer. And you were a huge puzzle piece to her success. And that says a lot about y'all as people. But outsourcing it is not always the answer. Like if she got stuck or something, or like you're like, dude, I cannot figure out why her rise ball sucks. Like, I'm making something up. I don't know about your rise ball. Okay. But like, you could totally go get it that outsourced, but then you have to go work exactly what you learned at those lessons, Like, how often do you think you pitch with your dad on a weekly basis? In high school.
Like during high school season or not in high school
Like
season?
anytime. Like, would you say like give or take maybe like twice a month outside of lessons, like just to go get some throws in? Like, how much quality time did y'all spend? Not just to get better, but to spend time together.
So what our situation was is like our house layout, we have an RV parking space. So that was basically my bullpen.
Mm-hmm.
And so he got a pitching mat, and then I'd say probably 4 times a week.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe 4 or 5 times a week.
That's like so much time. Do you know that, right? Like,
Well, so we got to preface it. One day would be like just spins, right? So
Yeah.
it wasn't like a
it doesn't
full
matter. We're
day
talking
of it.
about time here. You know what I mean?
Well,
We're talking about the workout, but
I mean, my job wasn't very hard, right? I was a PE teacher. I was getting home,
I mean,
3:30.
we were
4
getting
o'clock.
home he would take me home from school,
Yeah.
and then
right.
right after school we'd go in the
I had contraptions, I had the
Oh my God.
standing. I had the
What is
standing.
the silliest thing you bought? Like, what's
Oh,
this?
I didn't buy it. No, I made it.
he
So
builds them. He
I
builds them.
built the
Oh, so
PVC with
you're a
the strings.
plagiarizer.
Yeah, so I built the PVC pipes with the strings, the strike zone strings and
That
and
thing
a
was awesome.
chain. Yeah, it was real cool.
Yeah, I think my dad probably, well, this is back when you had to buy the tape. But my dad bought probably every tape possible when it came to pitching. And then do you remember the Jenny Finch circle machine? Do you remember that? Way before Lacey's time. But
Yep.
anyway, my mom would be so mad because I'd be doing it. Like, it helps your arm circle basically. Okay. And it's resistance training. So it makes you go fast. Like, you can tighten it and it would go, "Meow, meow, meow," and my mom would be so mad because she would be like taking a nap or something like that. And it'd be like on a Sunday. And my dad's like, well, don't do it now. It's like, well, geez Louise, I'm trying to get it in. And here you are yelling at me. But the things our dads do, you know? It's
Yeah,
pretty
I mean, we had that. We also had I don't know where you got it, but the blue hitter, like the
The
plastic one.
the plastic
Oh,
hitter.
yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, I was a PE teacher and I was the lead teacher, so I was able to order things for the PE department. And so
Ooh.
I ordered that. So I doubled dipped. I ordered that through the PE department. Hope
Like, I don't know what
I've
happened.
retired, so they can't fire me for this. So I ordered that and then I brought it home.
That's called using your resources. That's all I'm hearing right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's right.
I'm glad you didn't use your wife for that or anything, like taped her to a pole and made her stand there. That's nice of you.
We named it after a girl that we weren't very fond of in a travel ball.
So when I would hit her, it's like,
So
whatever.
yeah, if it was a screwball and a hitter, it's like, oh,
Sorry.
Yeah, seriously. I know my dad would always say, well, so and so is probably pitching right now. And then like look at me like,
Yeah, that's
and I'm like,
what I would tell myself.
fine. Yeah, I'll go. Because you always have like those rivals, like when it comes to like high school ball and all that kind of stuff. So it definitely helped a little bit as, I got a little, sometimes you just don't want to go because you're tired. It's not the fact that you don't want to go pitch, you just don't want to do it right now. And a lot of it for me was like the lifting part. My dad would make me go every Sunday to the work, to the weights and lift. And we were huge, like my dad was huge on lifting and being strong. Like my sister was a power lifter, like all the things. So, but yeah, I think if you don't have, that support system, it's really hard to like, unless you're like a freak of nature where you're just like anal about getting all your workouts in. But like, I would say I wouldn't have been as good if it wasn't for my dad. Could you say the same thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, because he was there for you, whether you liked it or not.
No, it was a routine, I feel like. We were just, all right, get home from school. What are you working on today? All right. 40
Now,
minutes later.
after a while, my eyesight as soon as I turned 50, my eyesight was getting a little blurry. I eventually got LASIK, but when it was really bad, I was like, Lace, can you find a catcher, please? Because I cannot see the ball coming at me.
Yeah, my dad, when I got from college, he was like, I'm not catching you anymore.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to have to find somebody else to take you or do something. I'm like, oh, and he's like, I'm just getting too old for this. I don't want to do it anymore.
I mean, her last pitching, she doinked me right in the thigh because I just full on missed
Well,
it 'cause I couldn't see it.
what he does is that he tries to move out of the way, but his leg happens to go where the pitch is going to go.
Right, right.
So he's like, I can see he's trying to move, but his leg just he comes up and the pitch just hits him where his leg.
Because I'm old. That's
Yeah.
part of the reason.
How hard do you throw right now?
Probably like 63, 64.
You think that's like an average speed for your conference or like around that area?
Yeah, definitely. I'd say it's pretty the average. Um, fastest pitchers in my conference maybe 66.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you see those pitchers, because obviously you know like pitching and kind of movement, all that kind of stuff. I mean, when I watch the World Series, I'm like, wow, like I know she's throwing a screwball because it's spinning that way, but it's like, compared to like a 63 or 62 screwball where it's like really cutting because they just don't have the space. Like, do
Yeah.
you see those pitchers getting hit differently than you would have? Like, if they make contact or how are you seeing that kind of play out in your conference?
So you're talking about the pitchers in my conference that I see kind of getting hit differently?
Yeah, like so you're saying the average speed that you're kind of around is like 63, 64.
Yeah.
And when you see the faster pitchers, like the 68s to the 60, maybe 70s, like what are you seeing as a pitcher that is like are they getting hit differently or is it's just so fast it's like so hard to hit?
I mean, personally have not hit since I was 12 years old. So,
Well, I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. Like, what are you seeing your teammates like
okay.
success or, between
Yeah.
those types of different pitching?
I'd say my teammates are pretty confident with any speed. Especially I mean, especially with faster pitchers, all you pretty much need to do is make contact and it'll kind of go farther than you expect. It's the fast pitchers with a rise ball that I think a lot of teams struggle with
Yeah.
because I mean, obviously it's rising and it's coming at you fast, so you have barely any time to react. But I don't I mean if they have good spin, like if I have my teammates coming up to me in the dugout and they're like, yeah, her spin's so wonky or spin's so weird, that's when I think the most trouble happens with our hitting because they can't figure out what the spin is or where that pitch is going to go, especially because it's coming in so fast and it's spinning really weird. Um, but there's also some pitchers where it looks like they're pitching fast, and then my teammates come in, they're like, that's like it's flat. Like there's no spin on that. It's coming in straight, and you just need to make contact, basically.
Yeah, basically just swinging strikes,
Yeah.
don't I think too like sometimes those pitchers that are so fast, they look like it's like the look of it is overwhelming. So people they already make the commitment they're going to swing before the pitch is even, pitched. But if you look at like if you're looking at from like behind the pitcher, I know y'all seen this probably 100 times on TV, but it's like that ball isn't moving that much at all.
Yeah.
But they have like this sick, nasty change up, and you're like, all right, now I'm gonna look like a real idiot. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. They usually have really good changeups. I know one of the pitchers on Stanford, she was throwing like 68, 69, but she didn't have a changeup. And I think we started hitting her like first two innings, and they had to take her out because, I mean, one time through the lineup was enough for my team to catch up with whatever she was throwing.
yeah.
And there was no change in speeds, so
And that's like wild to not have a change up at that level.
I know it was weird.
Because I mean you can only boom the ball so much.
What I notice is the teams, her pitcher staff is 60s, low 60s, and when they play the Stanfords and the UCLA's, the first couple rounds they're actually competing, right? Against UCLA, it was like it was 1-1 going in the 5th inning. This is UCLA, and then Stanford was a super close game
Mhm.
because these girls are so used to that, those 68, 69, 70. All of a
Yeah.
sudden you're throwing 61, 62, and then their changeup is 57, 58. They weren't used to it, for the, maybe the first couple times around the lineup, and then the wheels come off usually after that.
Yeah, usually
After the
they make adjustments.
After the third time through the lineup, they're coming up a fourth time. UCLA's like, all right,
All
we're
right, all
we're
right,
Yeah.
stop
so
messing around.
bad, you could tell.
Maya Bray did not have a good game against you until
Oh,
the very end, and then she
oh,
whacked a
yeah,
3-run home run. But
it's
I
crazy.
know, it's so funny. Like, you think about those games, you're like, dang, like, we're in it. And then you're like, we were.
We're
If
so
we only played 6 innings, we would have won, Like,
no, it was I think we would have won. We would have won, and I mean the one run we did score was our second baseman hit a home run.
Mhm.
That was the only hit. I feel like no, there were a few innings where we got like first and second or like second and third. We just couldn't
yeah,
get the
Score.
run in. Yeah. So I mean, it was a really good game. Yeah.
Yeah, there are some games I look back, I was like, dang, like, we did all right. Like, I know we weren't going to win, but at least, like, we showed out.
right.
And usually, hopefully, you play your best, like, because you're matched up. Like, you're thinking, like, well, we have nothing to lose, like, if anyone's going to bet on them, like, and.
That's how we
Yep.
felt when we played Oklahoma my sophomore year. I mean, we didn't score any, but it was only 9-0, and we're like, hey, teams in the Big 12 are getting knocked around like 15-0, and we only lost 9-0.
In like 4 innings or something, like something ridiculous, like a very like
Yeah.
short game.
So in our heads, we won. So
Totally. And that's all you can do is compete, do your absolute best. And some of those girls are just like freaks of nature,
Yeah.
So I'm going to turn this live off real quick. What do y'all think? Do y'all think that was enough content to make a little episode or?
yeah.
Yep.
All right, cool.